Hello everyone and welcome yet back to the exciting edition of the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Christopher Shepard. Thank you all for tuning into today's show. It's going to be a fantastic midweek show. We're going to be talking about Thursday Night Football for a bit to start off today's show. Just giving you guys a general betting preview to start off with, then looking at some prop bets that I think might be able to hit for you. Then I'm going to continue my positional rankings, looking ahead to Week 5 of the NFL season with my wide receiver and tight end picks for this week. And then last but not least, I'll be giving you all a shadow report, my weekly shadow report of the wide receiver cornerback matchups that I feel will define fantasy football this week in that realm. Without further ado, let's begin the show with saying like, follow, and subscribe to the show on the network if you do feel so inclined. It's a great way to contribute to the show. It is greatly appreciated by all, especially me and my fellow podcasters. You should definitely go check out as well. Another thing before we get right into the show, I do want to remind you yet again that even though you guys have been doing an incredible job, I know we can do even better. Like, follow, and subscribe. But not only that, Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features here on YouTube are a great way to interact with the show. I love all the comments we've been receiving, whether it be questions, comments, concerns about your fantasy football team, or just about the topics I talk about in this show. Whatever way you want to get your opinion out there, I appreciate it, and I will talk about your comments as much as possible on this show. So keep on doing what you guys have been doing. Without further ado, let's jump right into today's show, starting off with a general betting preview of our Thursday night football game for this week. A big NFC South game that could have potential playoff implications. I know that it's a little bit early, but at the end of the day, when I look at these two teams, with all due respect to the New Orleans Saints, in the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons, at the end of the day, I feel like will be the ones to emerge as the true contenders to win the NFC South title. So this game in Atlanta certainly has a lot of huge implications. Let's talk about this from a betting perspective for a little bit. Surprisingly, Atlanta is a 1.5 point favorite. The line didn't move. They were recently 2.5 point favorites, so the line didn't move. Kind of in favor of Tampa, but not fully. Over under 43.5 points. The Tampa money line is plus 115. The Atlanta money line is minus 135. So as you can see, odds makers are expecting a close game. Odds makers aren't necessarily willing to budge, though, on the concept that since Atlanta has a home game, they should be the favorite. And I disagree. I look at the Bucs and think they're the first team that I want to talk about in this match because they have been the more impressive one. They have been a team in the NFC who I feel like can beat anyone and anyone on any given Sunday or Thursday or Monday, if you so give them the time. When I look at the makeup of this team, right? I look at Baker Mayfield, who a lot of people worried about entering the year because Dave Canales went to coach Carolina, and in comes Liam Cohen, albeit of the Sean McVay tree, but not necessarily with the credentials of rejuvenating QB careers like Dave Canales did with both Geno and then Baker. So it was kind of a question mark as to how this offense was going to look entering the season. But Baker has proven time in and time out that he continues to be one of the more underrated, underappreciated quarterbacks, most importantly, in the NFL. And I think that the reason why this season he looks much more confident in himself is because last season he did have that confidence and moxie, but that was mostly what carried him through that season. This year, it feels different. It feels like he has structure, the offense. It's not necessarily where you feel like some of the improvisation is forced. Every single thing that he does, whether it be out of structure or in the pocket in this offense, is with intention. And his receivers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, are really creating this very nice chemistry for him as well in that wide receiver room. And I think that because of this, the Bucs are a team that I expect to be in any game as the season goes on. Already two very impressive wins in the NFC on their resume, but they do have a tough stretch of games where in the next couple of weeks they face teams such as the Saints, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the 49ers. Then they have a bye, and then they get into the easier part of their schedule where they can rattle off a lot of wins and ultimately take the NFC South crown. But, and I look at them, I feel like even in those tougher games, they'll have a chance. I don't think there's as much, top heaviness to the NFL anymore. It's definitely a lot more parity that we're looking at. And so the Bucs, why not let them have a shot? On the defensive side of the ball, I do still have my concerns, though. They're very injury-prone on that side of the ball. Vita Vea out for a couple of games, as well as Kalijah Kancey up front. So that interior defensive line really hasn't had all the depth and experience that we know it has. On the back end, a couple injuries there as well. A lot of guys having to step up as well. Jamel Dean having to step up early in the season. They still have Antoine Winfield Jr., who at the end of the day might just be one of the best, if not the best safety in the league. But I still have my concerns there. But overall, they are a bend, don't break unit. I'm going to see it throughout the year as well. Let's take a brief respite from them and transition to the Atlanta Falcons, where I don't really know how best to describe them other than, say, a league average team. They're not necessarily, bad enough to warrant my stating that, but they're not exactly good enough to really catch my attention and say that they can win a game, even albeit at home, against a divisional opponent. Let's look at the offensive side of the ball first, and I think the offensive side of the ball is where most of the questions are being asked, even though the defensive side of the ball still has a lot of question marks as well surrounding it. Let's start with the offense. Kirk Cousins throughout this season has been a very Jekyll and Hyde QB. We've seen 2 game-winning drives where he's looked very impressive, very comfortable, but in the first game and a little bit of that game against Philly, there were moments where he looked stiff. That Achilles injury may have been impacting him from that he sustained last season in those games, that he wanted to protect himself as much as possible. But at best, he's managing the game enough for Atlanta to be in it at the end of the day, and that's why they have 2 impressive comeback victories over Philly and New Orleans in this season. But the negatives of this offense are the fact that Kirk Cousins can't give you much explosiveness outside of his passing ability, right? If you really want to open up this offense, you might have wanted someone that has more of a dual threat ability, and right now Kirk Cousins is just a Goldilocks kind of QB. He's just right enough for the Atlanta Falcons to survive and advance each and every single week and hopefully can compile enough wins to win the NFC South. And that might be good enough for Atlanta, but it might not be good enough for the structure of this team, because this team has a lot of talent at its disposal. And the way it's being utilized, yes, I can see some positives, but not a lot to take away in these first 4 weeks. I like how they're using Drake London in the red zone. I like that they're trying to get Bijan Robinson a lot of touches, albeit with topsy-turvy effect. I like that Darnell Mooney has emerged as a vertical threat, and I like that Tyler Algier still is proving why he's one of the better kind of backup hybrid running backs in the league. And so, while I want to like this Atlanta Falcons offense, I can't, knowing that a little bit of it is Kirk holding them back with some of the limitations he has in terms of what he can bring in terms of the versatility of this offense. I appreciate the fact that Atlanta wanted to diagnose a quarterback who can keep an offense on schedule and maybe get it to find its rhythm a bit more than a Desmond Ridder, but I think that ultimately it's not fully coalesced, and I'm still waiting for it to coalesce in order for me to be all in on Atlanta competing with Tampa to win this division. So, that being said, I still think this can be a competitive game. I feel like on the defensive side of the ball is where Atlanta might have a little bit of an advantage. They are healthy. They have playmakers on that side of the football, and Judon on that defensive line, and as a linebacker, kind of playing a hybrid role. You have A.J. Terrell as a corner. You have Jesse Bates, one of the best, if not one of the better safeties in the league as well. And you really have a structure that you feel like you can build around to sustain that side of the football. Raheem Morris, obviously a more defensive-minded coach. But then I look at Tampa, and I look at how confident and revitalized Baker looks. Confident in throwing balls into tight windows. Confident in working sideline to sideline. Confident in working, most importantly, out of structure. confident and most importantly keeping this offense on schedule. And the emergence, moreover, of a guy in Bucky Irving at the running back position who hasn't been this successful. The running back position hasn't been this successful in terms of hard-nosed running than honestly Doug Martin. So I feel like with the combined nature of Bucky Irving being a kind of smash-mouth workhorse back that wears down a defense, and Baker Mayfield's propensity to be able to extend plays out of structure on late downs, really will take a toll on an Atlanta defense that, if Matthew Judon doesn't generate pressure up front, then there's a chance that the secondary could crumble around this team. And so I feel like Tampa will take advantage of that, but I still think, Kirk Cousins is starting to come around as a guy who can manage the game, and the name of the game, most importantly, for Atlanta is going to be ball retention. How long can they possess the football in this game, and what can they do, most importantly, with those possessions to really help mitigate for the lack of talent and a lack of overall production from their defensive front that could get weared down if they don't stop the Tampa run game. So, in the end of the day, though, I'm taking Bucks against the spread. To be honest with you, I would have liked to see Vegas appreciate them a bit more in this one, because even though it's a divisional game and they always play each other tough, these two teams, I still feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the far superior team at this moment. Baker's just playing with a moxie and energy that we haven't seen from him in quite some time, and it kind of feels like Atlanta's a one step forward, two steps back kind of team. You feel like they're making slow and steady progress on the offensive side of the football, and then there are drives where they just can't contain the football for long stretches, and it's concerning to say the least. That being said, if you want a score prediction from me, I'm going to say Tampa 31, Atlanta 20. Tampa's going to pull away late in this game. I stand by my prediction of Baker having 300 yards, 3 TDs in this one as well that I made in a prior episode. And I think that ultimately Tampa will be happy with their performance in this game and be happy where they stand in the NFC South after this game. Let me know what you think in the comments, because it's certainly an interesting divisional matchup this early in the season. With that being said, we're going to take a quick break, and after we come back, I'm going to give you a more general overview of some prop bets that I think will hit in tomorrow night's game as well. So we'll be right back after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.